Greetings, barbecue family. Welcome to another episode of the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ podcast. I'm your host, Kenyatta Robinson. I'm always thrilled that you chose to spend a part of your Friday evening with us, and I hope you don't be shy. Jump into the comments. I think we got a pretty good topic that we all can relate to. So, tonight I'm talking about barbecue gone wrong, epic pitmaster fails, and how to fix them. So, as I kind of talk about some of my own barbecue fails, would love to see you guys come on into the comments and, share your experiences as well. Because if you've been barbecuing on a regular basis, you are bound to have some epic fails and some situations, that you're not too proud of. But hopefully, and the idea behind it all is that, you take those mistakes, you take those lessons learned, and then you grow from them. I mean, that's really the main thing. Observe what happened, learn from your mistakes, try not to replicate them. Hopefully you come across some things that will make you a better pitmaster in the future as you go on. So before we jump into it, I always kind of like to do a little bit of a roll call and give a shout out to the guys that are tuning in, because as I always say every week, the comments that you guys provide, your participation is the engine that drives the show. So let me give a shout out here. Let me get myself together and do this the right way. Okay. We're going to say hey to Jeff. Always great to see you, Jeff. Appreciate you. Hold on. Okay, I'm lost all my bearings here. Okay, this is what I want. I want to show this, and I want to show this. Here we go. All right. Happy Friday, Jeff. Appreciate you. Happy Friday to Paul. Thank you for tuning in. And let's say hello to Correctional Officer for Lockdown, aka Bruce, who's always digging the music. So I appreciate that. Appreciate all of you guys. Say hey to Q Bellies, hey to Joe, aka Q Bellies. Appreciate you. So all of you guys, one thing that we all have in common is that you guys are all members of the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. So very happy to see all of my society brothers tuning in to the podcast. Definitely appreciate all you guys. All right, so let's get into this. Going to start off talking about the Great Meat Disaster. And actually, this kind of came up a little bit during our last Backyard SmokeMaster Society meetup. But I'm going to talk about two in particular that come to mind for me. So one is the first time that I did beef ribs. So I was really excited about doing beef ribs. I'd heard that, it's a lot like doing a brisket, but just in a lot less, shorter amount of time. And so I was eager. I did these beef ribs, put them on my offset smoker. And I think, my big mistake was trying too hard to follow like a recipe that I had probably gotten from another YouTuber and trying to follow it to the letter. And ultimately, I spent all that time working on these beef ribs. I want to say, it's not nearly as long of a cook as brisket is, but it probably did take around maybe 6-7 hours, somewhere in that seventh hour. I, at that time, was not feeling confident enough to go by the things that I have now learned, right? You should really be going by the feel. You want your bark to set. go by the feel, use your sensories to determine, where that meat is during the cook. But at that time, I was kind of going strictly by temperature. The guy's recipe said to take it to a certain temperature, and that's what I tried to do. And ultimately, these beef ribs, they ended up coming off of the smoker pretty well scorched. I mean, they were not tender. They were basically like, little bricks on a stick. The color was all wrong. They were much too dark. My bark basically got singed, and it ended up being a perfect disaster. But, I will say, while my wife Janine is, she's definitely one, if she even gets a sense from me, because she always asks me before, we even dive in, she'll ask, so what do you think? Are you happy with them? Whereas I would prefer that she just, try it and give me her honest opinion about how they are. But, she was insisting that I give her my read on it. I think she could tell that, I was a little bit disappointed with how they turned out. And just based on that alone, she kind of went in very skeptical, took a look at them, and she wasn't having it. But God bless my sister-in-law, she appreciates, backyard smoked barbecue. And, she enjoyed and she devoured those beef ribs. I mean, it would be nothing that I would, ever want to share with anyone, but, she enjoyed them. So, that was kind of the win. But I did take some lessons from that. That was kind of the beginning of me realizing that, trying to follow these recipes, down to the letter is not the way to go. So get some experience on your grills, on your smokers, observe, and follow your own instincts. That will ultimately serve you best as you continue, your cooking journey. So before I get into the next fail, let's see what we got going on in the comments here. Because again, I want you guys to chime in as well. Let me know what your barbecue fails have been. So let's see. Okay. Q Bellies. I had a fail tonight, barbecued some chicken and wanted to feed my neighbor. Well, turns out, it was a little under. Yeah, you definitely don't want to mess around, serving some undercooked chicken. So hopefully it wasn't too far under. You don't want to get anybody sick, but, shout out to you, Joe. I appreciate you, sharing that. Because that's definitely, yeah, especially when, when you've promised it to like a neighbor or a friend or something, the pressure's a little bit on. So you definitely always want to represent yourself well. So I definitely appreciate that. If anything, I think with me, with chicken, I'm so afraid of going under that I think take it a little bit too far, actually, which, can also work against you because it can dry your chicken out. But, and I can attest to this, I have had some of Joe's food, which is fantastic. And, correctional officer says, I would be honored to take that awesome smoker off your hand. Okay, well, I don't know about that. But, if you ever get a chance to check out Q Belly's barbecue down in the Inland Empire in Southern California, do yourself a favor and do that. Absolutely. And Bruce also says, yeah, that's a great point of cooking with feel. Absolutely. Okay, so actually another... And we talked about this on in the society. We also were talking about doing our briskets, and the issue came up where we were debating about, hold on, I'm trying to get rid of the comment. Hold on. What happened here? Okay, let's get the comment off of the screen. All right, there we go. So in the society, we were talking about, is there a significant difference going prime versus choice? Okay, so I think, a very well experienced, established pitmaster will probably get up here and would say something like, it all depends on the skill of the pitmaster, and whether it's choice or prime, I can make it work, no matter what. But I do think that there is something to cooking with prime. There are some advantages of having, more of that fat, to help basically, help with the tenderness of your cook. Especially, this is a really big, thick, tough cut of meat. You're smoking it for a long time. And I think just having that extra fat content works to your favor. So from my own personal experience, I have done a lot of prime briskets. I took a chance and did a couple of choice briskets over the holidays, and maybe my standard is too high, but I was extremely disappointed, with how those briskets turned out. Now, kind of able to rescue it, because instead of, whereas, you want to do like your point, you want to do like your flat and do the burnt ends off of the point. Basically, the way that this brisket turned out for me, it ended up basically being chopped brisket. I mean, that was how I was able to salvage, that cook. But for me, that was a good lesson learned. So let me get back into the comments here. All right. See what you guys are talking about. Okay, Jeff says, one of my early cooks, I decided to use, mesquite on an offset, had no idea how intense it could be, and tried it on chicken way too much. I have a similar experience. When I first really got into barbecue, I also wanted to try mesquite. I think for me, this was even worse because I was trying to add some smoke flavor to some vegetables, and I had just had no clue, no idea, how potent mesquite is. And I think I was doing this on a Weber kettle, but oh man, those veggies were just, the mesquite totally took out, whatever semblance of taste, was left in those veggies was just wiped away. The mesquite completely overpowered it. And it's to the point now where I don't mess with the mesquite. I've been to Texas, Central Texas, and a lot of the barbecue joints down there will cook exclusively with mesquite. Pretty sure they're using, really large offset smokers where I think you can, get away with it, especially if you know what you're doing. But you definitely have to be pretty careful going with mesquite. So yeah, I concur. That's a good lesson learned. Correctional officer says to Joe, was the chicken rubbery, or do you mean it was undercooked? I have struggled with cooking chicken lately. My chicken has come out rubbery. And that's a pretty common issue that a lot of home or backyard pitmasters experience with chicken, is that the skin doesn't turn out to be as bite through as we would like, especially if you're trying to smoke the chicken. So you guys jump into the comments if you've got some tips, for a correctional officer on that. My suggestion, and I think a pretty common one, is cook your chicken at a hotter temperature than maybe you would like your beef or other meats. We're kind of into the, we're smoking, and we're trying to keep our temperatures, 275, 250. With chicken, don't be afraid to take it hotter. take it to 350, if you're doing a whole chicken, or at least 325. And then also, before you even put the chicken on the smoker or your grill, make sure that skin is as dry as possible. So what I like to do with mine is I let it sit in the refrigerator, for a couple of hours at least, before I put it onto the grill. So dry skin, hotter temperatures, spray it maybe with, vegetable oil, Pam. I like using duck fat with my chicken. Those are all things that I think can help with the skin and keep it from turning out to be too rubbery. But definitely cook it at a hotter temperature. Okay, Paul says a majority of my fails have been due to cooking on a dirty grill. That's another good, a good point. And just a good rule of thumb, especially, whether you're cooking a lot on your grill or not, you want to keep your grill clean. Try and keep it clean. Keep those grill grates clean. One of the things I like to do at the end of my cook while the grill is still hot is, I'll either take like aluminum foil and run it over the grates, to kind of knock off the stuck meat, the crud, knock that off. Another thing I like to do is to take an onion. I'll cut the onion in half and run it across the grill grates while it's still hot as well. So that's kind of a natural way, and that also helps with keeping the grates pretty well seasoned. And let's see, getting back to the chicken issue, Q Belly says, if I'm cooking chicken enclosed, I typically go for 350 degrees for about 45 minutes and then start checking the temperature. Yep. So that is outstanding advice for a correctional officer. All right. Let's see. Let's move on. Next topic here with when it comes to barbecue fails. So let's get into fire gone wild. So for me, one of my more memorable situations with a really hot grill. I can't remember what I was cooking. It probably was like party wings or something like that. I mean, I know I had gotten my Weber Summit Kamado up to a really hot temperature. I'm thinking it was probably like 400 degrees, maybe even 450. I was really trying to get these party wings going and get speaking of having a good skin, that's what I was really going for. And when I went to check on the wings, I made the mistake of not burping the grill, where you kind of lift it up just a little bit, you burp it, kind of let some of that heat out before you raise it all the way open. So I made the mistake, just wasn't thinking about it, and I just yanked that lid open, and oh man, I got that blowback. And so I kind of dispute, because I think my daughter Erin was on a podcast episode, and she was talking about this. She swears that, part of my eyebrows or something like that got singed off. And I don't recall it being that way, but I do remember the hair on my arms definitely got singed. Some of them you could see had, instantly turned like gray, so it was definitely a mess, but it was a good lesson learned. So absolutely make sure that you burp the grill when you get it really hot. Open it up slowly, or you could be going without some body hair, facial hair. You get the idea. All right. Okay, so let's go to the next. Next up, seasoning slip up. So for this one, I've had some issues where, and this is the I think kind of the downside when you become really dependent on using commercial rubs, is that you really don't know what the ratio of salt is, to everything else, especially if you decide that you want to try and do some layers. A lot of the commercial rubs are going to have a pretty good amount of salt in it. Make sure you do look at the labels to see, which ones. I think the rule of thumb is the ingredients that are listed first are going to be the ones that are most prominent. So I have had issues where I had used some type of a commercial rub and not really understanding the salt content. And it has made some of my food come out really salty. I did some baby back ribs a few months ago where I had this happen to me, and you're thinking, you want to do layers, you want to layer on the flavor. And man, oh man, it just came out to be, too salty. And I'm not going to name any names of the products that I was using, but it was really more of a lesson learned for myself. So, when you get in the habit of, creating your own rub, exactly, what your content, what your ratios are. And another tip that I would offer is, with salt, basically, if you also use like granulated onion or granulated garlic, basically those can act as replacements for salt. So if you aren't, and that's basically kind of like your basic, you always hear it, SPG, salt, pepper, garlic, or your all-purpose rub. So if you're using garlic, onion, just know that you probably don't need to use nearly as much salt as you may have been thinking when you were putting the rub together. So that would be my tip there. And I would highly also would love to know you guys' thoughts in the comments about any mishaps that maybe you've had with, seasoning, over seasoning, using too much salt. I know some of us like things to be a little hot, maybe getting carried away with some of the more hot seasonings like cayenne pepper or chili powder in combination with black pepper. Maybe you've had some incidents there as well. So we'd love to know, what you guys have experienced. Let's see. So let me get back into some of the comments because you guys have got it going on in the comments. All right. Correctional officer says, last summer, I learned a valuable lesson. Grilling on a wooden deck is dangerous. I was able to contain and extinguish a flare-up from an ember that fell on the deck floor. Wow. And actually, yeah, I don't have a wooden deck, but when I do see folks who are, grilling on them, that is always kind of like in the back of my mind, something that I would be, pretty afraid of is, the potential for having a fire. But then I also get worried about, if you have like a spill or something, hitting the deck, that may not come out, too easily. So hopefully, if you do have a wooden deck, hopefully you're using like a fireproof mat, underneath your grill or your smoker, to help prevent, having that type of a situation. And this is a good tip also from correctional officer, is to always have a fire extinguisher nearby. And I'm guilty of this. I know this, but I don't keep a fire extinguisher outside, but I think now that I'm speaking it into existence, that will have to become part of my, my outdoor equipment. Definitely need to add a fire extinguisher, and I recommend that for all of you guys as well, especially if you are cooking on a wooden deck. All right, Joe says, another thing I make sure to do when cooking chicken is never putting chicken on the bottom grate if there are multiple. Oh, those grease fires are intense. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, if you're doing poultry, and yeah, if you're not using like an aluminum pan or something underneath to catch the drippings, yeah, I can easily see where that could be an issue, especially if you are doing multiple chickens and you're cooking at that hotter temperature. You definitely don't want to have a situation where you're having a grease fire. And Joe also says, if I'm going on a Weber or similar, I'm going indirect and only doing a quick sear on skin with the cover open, never enclosed. Now, this is a good tip, and this is something I haven't tried, is to help crisp up the skin, or also to help ensure that it's not too rubbery. I'm thinking at the end of your cook, doing a quick sear on the skin. So that's a good tip, and that's something I need to incorporate, into my cooking. Jeff says, over salting, been there, done that. I've overdone jalapeno powder too. So yeah, again, you definitely want to be cognizant of your salt content, and then also cognizant of the hot, spicy spices like a jalapeno or cayenne. Don't want to get in trouble with that. And Paul says, using Morton's kosher salt or crystal kosher salt quantities, Morton's is much saltier, 3 times as much, I think. Okay, now see, I have never heard that, but I have heard many pitmasters say, when it comes to kosher salt, I've heard many of them recommend the crystal kosher salt, by name. And I never really knew why, like I was kind of thinking, what's the difference? Like why are so many pitmasters like on YouTube talking about the crystal kosher salt? So maybe that goes a long way to explaining it. And man, I think we just picked up like a big box of Morton's kosher salt. But I've gotten pretty sensitive to not wanting to over salt my food. So I think that I'm going to have to now look for crystal, because that's a good tip. So definitely appreciate that. Appreciate that, Paul. Okay, so we've talked about seasoning slip-ups. Let's take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, which is myself, Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ, and we have an online membership community. The folks who have been chiming in with comments are all members of the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. So if you would like to be involved in an online community where we keep the conversation going off of the podcast on a platform that's a lot like Facebook, but it's not Facebook, and it's strictly about barbecue. And we're just all about guys sharing stories, sharing experiences. We would love to have you in the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. It's not very expensive. We're talking like the price of, a couple of large cups of Starbucks, maybe less, because I don't even know what a large cup of Starbucks goes for these days. But if you're interested in learning more, you can go to backyardsmokemaster.com/society, or just take your phone and use that QR code on the screen, and you can get more information about becoming a society brother. Let's get into equipment fails. So the first thing that two things come to mind for me when it comes to equipment fails. One of them has to do with relying on grills or smokers that are reliant on electricity. So I'm thinking of pellet smokers, and I've had this happen to me a few times, especially with my older pellet smoker, where sometimes during a really long cook, maybe I'm doing a brisket, maybe I'm doing a pork butt, I have had instances where I've had a flame out. For whatever reason, the fire pot, it's no longer burning through the pellets, and the pellets are just kind of accumulating in the fire pot. And, I get this loud kind of alarm sound, the smoker is letting me know, and it'll automatically shut off right there in the middle of the cook. And I might know that I've got hours to go. So I've had this happen to me on more occasions than I would like to admit with a pellet grill, pellet smoker. And that's kind of one of the downsides. So the plus side of using a pellet grill, and I think they've gotten better over time, but the plus obviously is they're super easy to cook on, automatic temperature control. It's a really set it and forget it experience. It can't get any easier. It's a lot like cooking on your oven, but you're getting the benefit of getting some smoke flavor off of pellets. Those are all the positives, but the negatives is that, it's a product that's reliant on electricity, on digital components. Things can fail, things can go wrong right in the middle of your cook. So I highly recommend, if you do have a pellet grill, a pellet smoker, and you are really dedicated to barbecue, the craft of barbecuing in your backyard, do yourself a favor. Also, learn how to cook with charcoal. Learn how to cook, with a source that's not reliant on electricity, something where you could be anywhere, and if you needed to cook, all you need is, fire and charcoal, and you're good to go, and you're not reliant on any moving components, any electric components that can break down. So that would be my recommendation on that. And then, of course, once you've, really gotten cooking with charcoal under your belt, maybe you'll graduate to cooking with a stick burner where you're cooking with wood splits. But those are really the traditional ways of barbecuing. So highly recommend that you add something like that to your arsenal, even if you have a pellet grill or smoker. Another equipment fail that I've experienced, especially a few years ago, we've seen in the barbecue accessory world, we all want to have like a wireless thermometer, something that's untethered, that you can help monitor your cook, especially a long cook without any wires. So wireless thermometers offer a lot of promise. Now, some of the newer ones, I've got some experience with the new wireless thermometer from ThermoWorks, as well as the one from Fireboard. So far, I've had no issues, no real complaints with either one of them. So I think the technology is coming a long way. But some of my early experiences, I was one of the people that supported, for example, Meter. When it was a Kickstarter program, I supported that campaign. Got the meter block. Love the app, but I have had a lot of issues, with Meter, also with Meat Stick. Some of the early iterations of the wireless thermometers with connectivity issues, either from the outset of the cook or at some point during the cook, or maybe just with the range, you know, when you get far away from the smoker. Just a lot of different issues that ultimately made the experience much more frustrating than it was worth. So my recommendation, even if you have one of the newer wireless thermometers that I do think really highly of, and what I also recommend as one of the first accessories that you should get when you get into barbecue, and you should always have one, you know, by your side, is a good instant read thermometer. You can get one, they're not expensive. You can find them, for instance, on Amazon. You can probably get one $15 or less. You know, there are some others that are, you know, that are more costly, you know, that maybe will give you the temperature faster, probably a little bit more accurately, but I have found that instant read thermometers are all pretty accurate. They're all really fast at giving you a temperature reading. So that would be my recommendation on that. So I definitely have had my share, far more than I'd like to admit, of equipment fails impacted by having a failing wireless thermometer. Okay, let me get back into the comments and see what you guys are talking about. So getting back to correctional officer thanking Joe for the tip about going indirect. Bruce says he's going to try to experiment that technique more on his 55-gallon oil drum and try searing with the lid open rather than down. And then we've got the real meat stick joining us. Appreciate that. Good to see you. And you guys, I know that meat stick affiliated with, and here I go, forgetting the exact name, Smoke Slinger, right? That's the name of it. And I know that you guys have a new offset smoker that you just started, I believe, selling in early February. So check it out. I think it's a 94-gallon offset smoker, if I'm not mistaken, and it looks very impressive. So great to see you. I appreciate you coming on. Let's see. We got Bruce saying, since I'm on a barbecue OSHA kick, I must state the importance of using gloves. That's a great tip. I learned to never touch hot coals regardless of how they might appear. That is an outstanding tip, suggestion, reminder. So, you know, I talked about having a good instant read thermometer. You should also have some good heat resistant gloves to help protect your hands from, you know, hot fuel, hot coals, hot wood, hot food. You know, protect your hands, because that can easily happen. You know, sometimes you just can't look at something and determine how hot it is. But man, when you feel it, you feel it instantaneously, and it's going to take a good while to recover. So definitely have yourself some good heat-resistant gloves, as Real Meat Stick can attest to being burned on a firebox several times. And then also, I would say, in addition to that, also have yourself some good, you know, disposable gloves as well, you know, for your food handling. That'll go a good way in food safety. So make sure that you have that. So definitely some things to keep in mind. Okay, Jeff can also attest to having some disappointments with those early iterations of Meter. Connectivity was totally unreliable. Yeah, the new ThermoWorks RFX wireless has been rock solid. And I know Meter also has like a new new version of the wireless thermometer that I think came out sometime in 2024. I don't have any knowledge of whether or not they've improved or not. But I would say if you really want to go the meter route, definitely would say check out the newer versions as opposed to the originals. Let's see. And here's another testimony. The ThermoWorks RFX is awesome. I didn't bother to read the directions and found out the probe's charged by battery and not through the head unit. Yeah. I've got both the ThermoWorks RFX and I've got the Fireboard, their new wireless thermometer. And I can't remember. I think the Fireboard, I think Fireboard charges through like a USB-C connection. And I think ThermoWorks, that's right, does charge by battery, which is pretty consistent, with pretty much all of their thermometers, use some type of a battery. So I think that's pretty well consistent. Okay, next up, let's talk about weather wrecking the cookout. So I've had a few of these incidents as well. So of course we're not talking about, when it's too hot outside or anything like that. That's perfectly fine. You might be thinking rain, and I definitely have had my share of being out in the rain. But that hasn't really been an issue for me either, other than just, getting a bit wet. For me, and I don't have experience with snow because it doesn't snow in this part of California that I'm in. Well, maybe once every 4 or 5 years we might get we've gotten a little bit of snow up in this part of the East Bay where I'm at, but not enough where it doesn't stick. So anyway, snow is not an issue that I can attest to, but for me, it's been more about the wind. I think wind can wreak havoc, with your grill or your smoker. So if you are dealing with really windy conditions, and I've had situations where, the wind has caused me to have some serious temperature spikes inside of my grill, that, did wreak havoc on my cook, required me to pay a lot more attention and be out there trying to make adjustments. Otherwise, the temperatures could spike, and get way out of control and just, or having really big fluctuations. So if you do have windy conditions, determine which way the wind is blowing, which way is the wind gusting, and you may have to rotate, change your grill, where the intake is facing, and move it around to make sure that you're not getting too much wind, coming into your grill or your smoker. So let me know in the comments, do you guys have you had issues with weather, playing havoc on your cooks, and what your tips are for dealing with it? Because if you're somebody, and I think most of us who are here watching the podcast are pretty dedicated. You're not the occasional barbecue person. You're not just grilling, smoking on the holidays. This is something that you're doing on a regular basis. So if you do it on a regular basis, at some point, you're going to be faced with some weather that's going to give you some headaches. So would love to know in the comments, what your experiences are with adverse weather and how you dealt with it. All right, let's see what we got going on in the comments. So another recommendation from Real Meat Stick to definitely keep your pits clean so that again, we talked about this earlier. That being that's just something you should do as a regular practice. I think is to take the time to keep your grills, your smokers clean, both on the inside and outside. All right, Bruce says, yeah, with regard to real meat stick, your awesome Liberty 94 offset. So with regard to that, can you attach a fan blower to it as well? Just asking. I'm sold on my smoke slinger. So, okay, Bruce, so are you saying that you have a smoke slinger, or did you recently order one? So we'd love to know. And so again, this is the Liberty 94 is the offset smoker that I was talking about that just came out. And here I'm trying to see if I can pull that up. And I think I saw somewhere, maybe it was on Instagram, where you guys talked about having a new YouTube video out with regard to the new Liberty 94. All right, let me see if I can get this up on the screen here. Hold on. Let's see. Wait a second. Bear with me. Actually, we got a couple more comments. Before we get to that, let me hit these comments. So Bruce said, I've had problems with the wind, and usually I will angle my grill from the direction of the wind. A wind chime is helpful too. Okay, I hadn't thought about that. It's funny. I do have a wind chime out there, but I had never thought, when the wind is really blowing, to look up at the wind chime to help me gauge which way the wind is blowing. So I'm glad you said that, Bruce. That's another good tip. Jeff says in colder areas, yeah, an insulated cover for the cooking chamber helps. There are options for a lot of popular cookers, right? And then, let's see, with regard to the Liberty 94, I think Bruce asked if there was a fan hookup available, and Real Meat Stick says there's no fan hookup, but there is a probe port. And I guess I would say in that regard, with an offset smoker, at least with my own experience with my Lone Star Grill's offset smoker, which does have a fan hookup, and I did try it. I don't think that using a fan with an offset smoker really is advantageous. I think fans are better, for your charcoal-based cookers. With an offset, you're cooking with wood splits. Each split is gonna kind of do its own thing. I think it's best to just kind of learn and observe, how your splits are burning in your offset. For me, having the fan hookup, it didn't prove to be advantageous and worth the effort, because ultimately, when the split dies down, you're still gonna have to add another split, whether you've got a fan in there or not. So that's just kind of my own opinion on that. And then Real Meat Stick says, Jeff, we don't make a blanket for our cookers. And this is another good point, especially with an offset or like with the smoke slinger. They are 1/4-inch steel and hold their temps excellently. He said, I had to chop 3 inches of ice on 300 feet of my driveway for FedEx to deliver 2 new pits to me today. And I think where Jeff is talking about the insulated blanket, I think that's more for, again, your charcoal-based cookers, your pellet grills. I think that's where having that will be more advantageous. With an offset smoker, if you have a good offset, it should be made from 1/4-inch steel, and maybe your maybe your firebox will be insulated. So that would be my question. Does the Liberty offset offer an option for an insulated firebox? Okay. All right. Now let's take a look since we've been talking about it. So Smoke Slinger Pits, and Real Meat Stick is here from Smoke Slinger Pits. He's in the community. And there it is. So this is the new offset smoker that just came out, $28.99, which I think is very reasonably priced for a 94-gallon offset smoker. I love the tall smokestack. I think that's going to help draw that oxygen and probably promote pretty even temperatures across. So, you know, since you guys are giving me love, just want to give you guys a little bit of love as well. It says it's designed for serious pitmasters looking for superior quality and performance. Built right there in Kaufman, Texas, using 100% American steel. Already confirmed that we're talking quarter inch steel, 94-gallon cooking chamber, 48 inches long, so it's capable of handling 4 to 5 brisket, 6 to 8 pork butts, or 8 slabs of ribs. Good temperature control, has an adjustable flow tuner baffle plate for dead, even, or custom temperature zones, so that gives you some flexibility. And you can take advantage, you know, if you do want to have some custom temperature zones where you have maybe a hot zone and a slightly maybe a cooler zone. So it has that capability as well. Let's see. Okay. And then based on the size of the firebox, best results with wood splits, 2 to 3 inches wide, 10 to 12 inches long over charcoal. Then switch to wood splits only. So basically start your fire off with a good bed of charcoal, then burn down the wood splits. And then as you progress through the cook, you continue to add wood splits. So this is a little bit larger, for instance, on the 20 by 42 Lone Star Grills offset that I have, where I find because the firebox is smaller, for me, having wood splits that are 10 inches or less is probably optimal. And that, I think, presents some challenges. Might have to do more, you know, because I buy wood splits from like a tree company, you know, that chops down trees, that kind of thing. So, you know, they have splits that you can buy, but sometimes, you know, I think most likely they tend to be more, you know, ideally sized. For instance, in the recommended size that we're talking about for the Liberty 94. So check them out, guys. Check them out. Just by, like, for instance, Real Meat Stick's presence, you know, they've been in the community often. I can already tell that you're going to be able to reach these guys if you have questions or concerns, and check them out at smokeslinger.com. All right. Okay, let's get back into the comments here. Let's see. Okay. All right, so Jeff, I think you guys were talking about, we're talking with Real Meat Stick in the comments. I guess this is probably related to the insulated, like the blanket issue. A lot of folks using an Oklahoma Joe. I don't really know much about the Oklahoma Joes. I do think that I know that they're probably more cheaper. You know, they're not as expensive as some of the offsets that are made with 1/4-inch steel. So I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be speaking out of turn. I'm kind of guessing maybe the Oklahoma Joes are not made from 1/4-inch steel. I think that you can probably get an Oklahoma Joe offset maybe at your Home Depot or Lowe's or what have you. So maybe they're going to be a little bit less expensive. And when you are working with an offset that doesn't have 1/4-inch steel, you're more prone to temperature fluctuations and that type of thing. Bruce agrees that the smokestack on that Liberty 94, very impressive. And Real Meat Stick says, okay, my body hurts from getting those two up and moving them into the garage. So again, there's an 800 number for the Smoke Slinger, an 850 number on the Liberty 94, and fun. He's going to be seasoning them up tomorrow. So that sounds pretty exciting. And of course, the community always has a recommendation for just about everything. Bruce says, go get yourself some Tiger Balm. All right, guys. Well, again, I do appreciate everyone for tuning in, for getting active into the comments. So before we get out of here, let me give one more plug. So again, this is the type of thing that we talk about in the Backyard SmokeMaster Society barbecue online community. Become a member today. Go to backyardsmokemaster.com/society, or just use your phone, click on that QR code to get more information about becoming a society member. Would love to have you in the society. All right, guys, so this is what we do here on the Backyard SmokeMaster podcast. We're here every Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Please tune in next week for another fun, exciting topic related to barbecue. We love to chop it up with everyone, so appreciate you tuning in. This is Kenyatta Robinson signing off. Have a wonderful weekend. Get out there, enjoy your grills and smokers, cook something, and we will see you very soon.